Hello, everyone, and welcome to Leading AI Agents. I'm Olivia Manchin, and today I have a very special guest that I want to introduce you all to. She is someone who saw the gap between AI's potential and how most businesses actually use it, and she decided to close that gap herself. Stephanie Nyarko is an AI coach, consultant, and product leader with over a decade experience in product management and software development. She's worked with companies like TELUS, Google, and Bank of America, and she brings that deep enterprise background into everything she builds now. Her tagline says it all. Most people feel behind on AI. She not only helps them catch up, she helps them leap ahead. She does that through her company. This AI tool does that, where she combines consulting, automation, and training to help businesses actually embed AI into how they work. Not just talk about it, not just experiment with it, but actually operationalize it. She holds a master's in business, entrepreneurship, and technology from the University of Waterloo and a certificate in women's entrepreneurship from Cornell University. She's a certified project manager, a product strategist, a speaker, and someone who builds and deploys AI agents herself. She has a Maven course on how to leverage AI agents using NAN and a growing LinkedIn following of over 16,000 people who tune in for her no fluff take on what is actually working in AI. She's been creating, talking about, working with AI agents for several years and is a great person to have a conversation about leading agents. Stephanie, welcome to Leading AI Agents. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation tonight.
Amazing. So let's just kick this off. Tell us your story. How did you jump into artificial intelligence?
That's a very good question. Over a decade ago, I actually worked in a machine learning and robotics lab in Germany. So that was my first stint with AI. I was pursuing computer engineering back then in Ghana, and so I did an internship in Germany. Back then, I was so fascinated about AI. But then back then again, AI wasn't accessible like it is today. Okay. AI was just something in the labs, required like PhDs, and it was so complex. So after that internship, I was like, you know what? I know I was so fascinated about AI. I don't think I want to go this route. I actually want to do something finance and technology, right? That time it was booming. So that was when I did a switch and I took another internship with Bank of America. I liked it, went back after my internship for a full-time role. So I hadn't really done much with AI till I went on maternity leave with my second daughter, right? And at that time, this was in 2023, I believe. ChatGPT had just come out in November 2022, right? So then I was like, you know what? Now AI is so different. It doesn't live in the labs anymore. Now it's more accessible, doesn't require so much coding like it used to. Let me try it out, right? So in between feedings and all that, I started trying out ChatGPT at first, and then there were all these like video models coming out and they were so fascinating. So I started trying that out. And then there was N8N, started building automation, and then realized that, oh my God, I really love the space. So yeah, so that was how come I got back into the space of AI and AI automation.
Wow. And then you really fell into NAN and have just run with it. You really have become quite the expert in it. What is it about NAN that it really clicked for you?
Yeah, so I started first with very simple automations, right? Started first with like email, and because I create content, I started with like repurposing my content, and then I realized that, oh wow, like there's so many aspects of my life, so many aspects of my business that I can automate now, right? So that's how come I started like trying out complex use cases, trying out like complex use cases that will make my life a lot more easier. And I mean, today
Mhm.
people see that, oh, like I'm always posting on social media, I'm always doing this. It's just because like I've been able to leverage the skill set I learned with like N8 knowing how to automate and all that to improve upon my life, right? So then started trying out use cases and it was just fascinating to actually see something break and something work again. Mind you, like 10 years ago, when I was writing code and things were breaking, it wasn't exciting, like it wasn't fascinating. But this time around, like, I mean, AI has become so accessible now. It's become so easy to like find information. So even if something breaks, it's even exciting. So that's how come I fell into anything and started running with it. I started first with the small automations, and then once they started working, once I started seeing results, I progressed into very complex use cases.
Wow. And it's interesting because it almost seems like these are leadership skills that you're using, right? You're already delegating and you started delegating a couple years ago, with NAN, and you started thinking, how can I delegate part of my life, part of my work? And I think that it takes a leader to see that and not just feel like you have to constantly prompt to get things started. You're like, no, this has got to be easier.
I know, and if you don't take care, like it can also trigger an identity crisis, and this is what I talk
Mm.
about a lot. Like the fact that like you are so used to doing things manually, and you sort of pride yourself in like having those skills, having the ability to be the person who enters the data and all that, and now you're like like I can just build an automation to do it, right? One, it can trigger an identity crisis. Two, it's just like I've been doing this thing for 5 years and now I have to stop, right? Like it's
Mhm.
also you have to go through like change in habits. You need to find a way to adapt to this new way of working, right? So it does have like it's so advantageous, but then I do see why a lot of people can sometimes oppose it, oppose automation just because, one, it can trigger an identity crisis. Also, two, is just like a different way of working now. And so
Mhm.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think it seems like now more than ever, being able to adapt to change seems like the key leadership skill. It's like being able to go, either change technology or just constantly pivot and change.
Exactly, especially in the world we find ourselves in today, right? Today, I mean, last year it was all about anything, anything, everywhere. Everyone's talking about anything. And then this year, like, people are still talking about anything, but then it's Claude Code, it's OpenClaw. Like, the space is changing so quickly. And
Mhm.
so I do think that the ability here is the real skill here is having the ability to really adapt and learn quickly, right? And it doesn't mean that you have to try out all the tools. I do believe that you can't really try out all the tools. You end up getting overwhelmed. That's how people end up getting stuck. Well, I do test out a lot of tools because I do tutorials about them. But then when it comes to like my core systems, there are certain tools that I rely on. And if you sort of like pick the tool based on your frameworks or based on your processes, then you don't have to always keep changing them because some of these tools are solid in its own way, right?
That makes a lot of sense. And do you find like when you are using NAN where you are delegating these tasks and you're creating a series of events, right? One thing triggers another and then creates a result. Do you feel like all of that got you ready to lead agents where the idea of having an agent, it clicked so much more for you?
Yeah, yeah. So with anything, like you can build AI agents, but there's also automation, like where you sort of define like every single step and how they
Mm.
have when it comes to agents, like they can just like you just have to give them a go and then they run on their own, right? I still don't like I use AI agents, but then I try to mix it like I try to make sure that I have some form of like guardrail in place. I have
Mm.
certain steps that are deterministic. And I do recommend that even if you are building your systems, you shouldn't just I don't think we're at a point. I know that we are like the future of AI right now is agentic, but I don't think we're at a point where you just want to like delegate every single thing to an AI agent. Like you want to make sure that you have some things that are deterministic, you know that like if you provide this input, this is the output you're gonna get, right? And I always say this, it comes down to your use case, it comes down to what you're trying to build, and then you sort of like architect your solution based on that. Don't go with, oh, I want to build an AI agent. Start first with the problem you're trying to solve. And if that problem requires an AI agent working on its own, making all the decisions on its own, then that's great. But don't lead with that first, right? Yeah.
That makes so much sense. I think what you're saying is similar to when you have a company or you have an employee. You don't think, I feel like having an employee today. It's like that doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. You think, okay, I have a problem I need to solve. I have a
Yeah,
department, I have a specific issue or
exactly, right?
something. And you're like, okay, write a job description. What is that person going to do? So I think when
And
people start thinking of it like leadership, it makes so much more sense instead of, I want an agent. Let's like, you're not going to have an employee and then be like, I don't know what we're going to do. I just wanted you here.
But it's interesting because this weekend I was listening to a podcast, Diary of the CEO, and
Mm,
it's not exactly what you're saying, but it's just like a different tangent. So he was talking about the fact that he was looking to hire somebody, and then he realized that, oh, actually, like an AI agent can do this for less, right? And so, yeah, he was like, you know what, let me take a step back. Let me just wait and see how things are going to turn out if I really need a human being or I need an AI agent. But I know it's quite different from what we are saying here, but it's also the fact that people saying that AI is actually taking jobs or is replacing people and stuff like that. Like I know that they are replacing tasks and stuff like that. But then in this use case, where there are certain things that you can just delegate to an AI agent to do, um, yeah, it can lead to other people not getting jobs and all that.
That makes so much sense. And it's so interesting you're saying that. As an entrepreneur, I've hired in the past, and something I always believed in, and Gary Vaynerchuk would say, it's like hire slow. And you basically want to get to know the person, you want to understand the role, and you want to think of your company long term. Like you're hiring a person, this is their career, this is their job, it's going to be long term. You really want to think of them in that way. So, really taking a pause and thinking, am I going to just bring somebody in and then get rid of them? It's like, no, actually, what do you actually need for this? And that clarity
Mhm.
seems really important.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true.
And speaking of Diary of a CEO, and who is it that you seek in when you're learning about AI? Do you find you just want more somebody that's motivating and empowering so that you can truck through when you're learning? Do you look for people that are more specific and tactical? What sorts of content are you consuming?
That's a very good question. So when it comes to consuming content around AI, because I sort of consume content to teach, most of the time and to implement, I sort of have like a wide variety of like people I listen to, mostly on social media. So for instance, if there's a new tool that comes out and I want to like sort of get some understanding on how the tool works, well, I go to ChatGPT or Claude, but then I also go online to some of these big YouTubers. I see if they have videos up. Um, so that's when I want to consume the content and teach, right? But if I
Mhm.
want to consume the content for like inspiration or to keep up with AI, see what's coming up and stuff like that, you'd usually find me on Reddit. You'd
Mm.
find me on LinkedIn, trying to understand. I like to go to I go on LinkedIn to see what's happening, the latest tools and all the announcements. And I go on Reddit to sort of, because Reddit is sort of anonymous, people go there and
Mm.
like if they have to bash the tools, they bash the tools, right? So I like that diversity of thought as well when it comes to Reddit. So there are multiple platforms that I consume AI information from. And of course, I also do have an automation that is also always listening to like mentions of AI tools and stuff like that. So these days, information is so accessible, and with social media, it's a lot more easier to sort of consume information as well. Yes.
That's awesome. Really appreciate your critical lens because I think there's something to be said about not just falling in love with a product, but actually wanting to hear the critical side of things. And it's like, okay, what are people
Yeah,
honestly, where is it actually breaking? Where does it not working?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it's
yeah.
easy to follow down a path and then just think, oh, this is all perfect and it's great.
100%. And when it comes to social media, you also have to be very careful because some of these are sponsored, some of these are paid. But when you go on Reddit, it's people are very blunt. They will tell you the truth. So I like those communities as well. Yeah. So yeah, I'm always on social media. I'm always on LinkedIn. I'm always on YouTube, like trying to understand trends, understand these tools. But when it comes to like critically like seeing what these tools are really good at or what they're not good at. I go on these subreddits and I get most of the information there as well.
Wow, I think that's a great leadership skill. And you know, it's interesting, which I wonder, I'd love your opinion on it. You know, how when you're leading people, you're getting feedback from people because leading people is hard because people have bad days, they have emotions, they're
Yeah.
uncertain, you have all of that. So you're getting kind of feedback on how you can tailor your leadership to them.
Mhm.
But then when you're leading agents, you're not necessarily getting that. You're not getting a bad day. You're not getting the feedback that maybe you're being a little rude or maybe you're not a great leader. So how is it that people can improve their leadership now when they're leading agents and they're not getting that human feedback?
That's a very good question, and I need to think through this. You know what? Yeah, maybe agents are not at a point where they can be very emotional, but I know sometimes when I talk to ChatGPT or I talk to Claude and I'm frustrated, it's like I know you're frustrated. But yeah, I feel like agents are not at that point. And as a leader, back to your point about being adaptable, also leading first with a problem you're trying to solve. Right. And also making sure that before you employ an agent, you make sure that your processes, you have the structure and all those things are clear. Because if your structure and your processes are not clear, they are not well defined, the AI agent is only going to amplify that, right? It's only going to amplify what you already have. So I think that's a critical leadership skill to have, knowing back to the conversation we were having, knowing the job you're hiring the AI agent for. And when you have an employee, like before you hire them, you want to get them a laptop, you want to get them all these things, right? It's the same thing. You want to make sure that all these processes are in place, right? Before, and unlike human beings that you would hire them to maybe set up a process, like with agents, they are there to sort of like I said, amplify what you already have, right? So yeah, if you don't have that, I think that's a very important leadership skill to have. If you don't have that, then you're probably not going to be getting the return on investment you want on the agents you've just deployed.
And that was one of my questions to you. And you've definitely touched upon it. I think having that clarity before the agent comes, before you bring them on board, is massively
Yeah.
important because, like you're saying, you can scale a mess very quickly with an agent. Uh,
100%.
yeah.
And And in the world of agents, I mean, you can put all your guardrails in place, right? You can put all your guardrails in place and everything, but yeah, like it can also go rogue. Um, and these days as well, there's different levels of security attacks coming. And so if you are not setting these apps well, these agents up well, then you also have a security problem, right? So it's very important to have all that set up as well. And I do think that maybe you can also like while building your agents, while setting an app, like if you wanted to give you like real honest feedback, these are things you can also include in your setup, right? You can say like, you know what, like maybe give me honest feedback. Sometimes you can customize it, right? How you want it to relate with you. Okay. So you can say things, maybe give me honest feedback. It really comes down to the use case, right? Let's say I was working with a client recently and he wanted to connect an AI agent to his restaurant data and then it would make decisions on like the type of like social media campaigns to trigger based on like how sales are doing during the day, right? So
Mm.
in a configuration like this, you can always like have a checkpoint in there and say like let me know like how I'm doing with sales. Like you can have all those things configured as well in your AI agents using natural language to ensure that it's providing you the feedback you also want as well.
And speaking of previous clients, would have been some projects that you've been either really excited about or that have just been really practical and you're like, oh yeah, that's a perfect use case scenario for this.
Yeah, so this restaurant use case was quite interesting for me. The fact that like connecting your AI agent to like the restaurant data and then based on how the sales are going during the day, you trigger this particular architecture was is supposed to be OpenClaw and end-to-end. So you sort of like
Mm.
trigger what sort of automations to run for your social media campaign based on how the restaurant is doing. There's
Mhm.
also this other automation or AI and workflow projects that I worked on. This was basically when the for this client, anytime he goes for meetings with customers, sometimes he would have like virtual meetings, sometimes you'd have in-person meetings. So right after the meetings, he would have to basically send them emails, slides, and all that. So being
Mhm.
able to transcribe that data, make sense out of it based on what we've defined, create slides, send it over to him automatically to review. And doing that saves him a lot of time because he doesn't have to come back, read through the transcript, understand everything again, or watch the video. He already has a summary, he already has slides ready. He just has to like look through it, provide approval, and the customer receives it. So there's so many other like use cases that I've worked on that have helped customers save a lot of time and also effort as well.
Wow. Yeah, especially those monotonous tasks that can be pretty exhausting. That,
Yeah.
at the end of that, of having to revisit that conversation, make notes, and then send it to the person, you're like kind of fried a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Extremely useful. And then, so speaking of OpenClaw, so tell me about maybe when you heard about it and what made you decide to kind of start experimenting with it.
Yeah, so I'd been like prior to OpenClaw, I was just always in any 10 building AI automations and everything. And OpenClaw went viral earlier this year. And so like I said, like I because I'm also a content creator and I teach people. So my goal of trying OpenClaw at first was to consume it, try it out, and then teach it, right? So other people can also learn about what it can do. So that was the lens in which I was approaching it. But yeah, I tried it out and I was like, wow, it blew my mind. I was like, wow, my God, like we've just hit another level, right? We've hit another level when it comes to like agentic AI. Unlike anything where like you're sort of triggering it and you can also make it deterministic in a sense that like you can really define the steps and everything. OpenClaw in this case is goal driven, right? So you can just give it instructions and it would go ahead and um do the stuff for you, right? At some point I deployed like 9 agents that it was just fascinating to see them like one agent finishes, he hands over the work to another agent and all that. Um so yeah, it was fascinating. It lived up to its expectation, I would say. What I didn't like though was the fact that like when I set it up at first, I set it up with Claude and it consumed so much credits. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So to answer your question, yeah, I tried it out. I loved it, and yeah, it's been great so far.
So are you still using it? Do you use it for something specifically for your life or for your business?
Because I sort of like I tried it out for the content creating agent, but then I already did have like a setup for
Mhm.
like my content creation with N8N and ChatGPT. Like I already had those things set up as well. But then I also did realize that it also did consume so much credits. So I was actually exploring having like if I was gonna be using OpenClaw, then I'll probably have like a self-hosted LLM
Mm.
model instead of like using any of these like frontier models like Claude, OpenAI, and all that. And so that was my main issue with OpenClaw. So it's not something I'm actively using, but I've installed it for clients and they're using it in their business.
Wow. And what were some of the security measures that you approached when you installed it?
So that's a very good question. So when I installed it on the cloud. A lot of people like when OpenClaw came, I'm sure like Mac Minis, like sale of Mac Minis went up. A lot of people like were installing these on Mac Minis. I installed it on AWS on the cloud. In my opinion, I just thought that was a lot more secure and reliable in a way. But then
Mm.
once you also put things on the cloud, then you also increase the attack surface, right? So what happens is that like now it's exposed to the internet. Everyone, like a really good hacker, can have access to it. And that is security reasons, security issues were one of the main complaints when it came to OpenClaw. Because one, like if you give it access to public internet, it means that everybody can sort of have access to it. The other thing also was with the fact that now you're giving it access to like APIs and everything. And so it can again go rogue, right?
Mm.
The other thing as well had to do with most of the credentials were being sort of like stored in plain text. So it means that if
Mm.
someone gets access to the system, they get access to your credentials. So a lot of like security issues that were with OpenClaw. I know that with now they're doing a lot of like improvements. When I go on Reddit, I see that there's a lot of like releases coming out and everything. And obviously now with Meta and with obviously now with Meta acquiring it, there's a lot of like security enhancements coming up. But back to your question, because I was deploying it on the cloud, I made sure that I wasn't enabling SSH, meaning that when I first installed it, I was able to like I sort of enabled like SSH port 22, I believe, to be able to access it remotely and everything. But I shut that down so that nobody else can sort of have access to my system, but just
Mm.
myself. And even if I needed to have access, I would basically do that through AWS itself. The other thing was making sure that my credentials were not being stored in plain text. And also putting some guardrails around like my rate, my
Mm.
API usage and all that, right? And obviously, like I said, I discontinued it just because I don't want to use OpenClaw with any of these frontier models. I want to use it with maybe a locally hosted model,
Mm.
so that running it, the cost that come with running it, would give me the return on investment I need.
Definitely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And do you remember the cost, like when you were kind of when it was like running up, like how much
It
you were getting
was, it
charged?
was it was a lot. I mean, for like a simple use case, it was a lot. It was a lot. I mean, if I say $20, someone thinks, oh, that's cheap. But like if it's running a simple use case for like 5 minutes and $20 is already
That's not
gone,
gonna work.
like,
That's not gonna
it's
work.
like if it's going on for an hour, right? Like you can imagine.
Exactly.
And when it comes to OpenClaw, the cost is not just about the API. It's not just about like the LLM, like the API. It's like there are other costs associated with running OpenClaw, like there's infrastructure cost, right? So for instance, if you are running OpenClaw on a Mac Mini, Mac Minis are like $700 or so, like at least they're expensive. If you're running it on AWS, maybe you're getting a GPU that comes with a cost, right? And now you're connecting to all these other tools, the APIs and everything that comes with a cost. So it's a whole like infrastructure setup. And so you can like if you're going with like a Mac Mini setup, you can easily go with like $1,000. I saw a lot of like use cases on Twitter. People were running 25 agents and all that. All those things come with a cost, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you like, one way to cut down the cost is maybe if you're self-hosting your own models. That way, there's still a cost with self-hosting your own models, but at least if you're self-hosting it, you are not paying for that part of the cost as well.
Mm. You are a fountain of knowledge, Stephanie. Oh my gosh. I can only imagine, as I think of a busy CEO or as a leader that wants to kind of create their own open claw or start Claude Code or, or buy a Mac Mini or not, or host on the web or like AWS like you did. I think there's a lot of thought that needs to go into it, which I can understand what the overwhelm, but the importance of maybe of like you're saying, it's important to kind of sit back and think, what am I trying to accomplish? What would I need an agent for? What would I want to, do this for? And then thinking about what are the tools then that I would need to accomplish that? Because it seems like there's many ways to accomplish the same goal these days, especially with agents. But it's a matter of resources, the amount of people using it, token costs, right? There's the hardware or sometimes just the software. So there's a lot more. Even though we hear OpenClaw, oh, it's free, it's open source. It doesn't mean
No.
free.
No, no, it's not free. It's not free. I mean, when people hear open source, they think it's free, but it's really not free because you need to host it somewhere. Even if you're hosting it on your computer, like you need to have a really good computer, like with good memory, storage, and everything for it to run really well. Otherwise, it's gonna crash your PC like most times. So that's why people were getting Mac Minis, and people were hosting on the cloud like I did. Um, and in the earlier days, I mean, now things have changed. Now,
Mm.
NVIDIA, for instance, released NemoClaw, which is supposed to add an additional security, like it's a security
Mm.
layout, runtime layer for enterprises to run OpenClaw securely. But in the early days, I mean, when people reached out that they wanted to like deploy OpenClaw and stuff like that, I really went back to the use case. I'm like, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? Like, do we really need to use OpenClaw, right? But like when people are also caught up in the hype, like everyone wants to try it out. So I mean, it's now the technology is like getting better. Like I said, I'm always seeing a lot of like releases and news out there about OpenClaw now. So so maybe things are different now. But yeah, I do think that before you adopt any technology, you need to make sure that you are trying to answer that important question. Like that's a basic question when it comes in every area, like entrepreneurship and everything. Like what problem are you trying to solve, right? That's the number one question you should ask. And once you ask yourself that question, then you can sort of find a solution. And it might include OpenClaw, it might not include OpenClaw, but that question is very important.
That's like foundational, right? It was something we forget. I think now more than ever, we need like the foundation business first principle thinking.
Mhm.
I'm curious. So speaking of Nemo Claw and all these like fun names that have kind of emerged in the last few months, I should say, there's a lot of people that when they create agents, they give them names, they give them pronouns, they give them personalities or a soul.
Mhm.
Do you find yourself leaning towards giving them personalities? Does that help you as a person? And
Yeah.
does that help leaders as well?
100%. Yeah, back to the earlier question you had about like how do you get that feedback loop? I think that that soul.md file is exactly where you put all that personality inside. And with OpenClaw, like you need that soul.md file. So yeah, it's very necessary to give your AI agent a personality. At the end of the day, if you're trying to get an AI agent to work like a human, and every human being has a personality, you want to make sure that you're trying to mimic humans as much as you can, right? I mean, you can't get 100%, but yeah, as a leader, like you need to ensure that, like, just like I think that as we enter this AI agent workforce, or should I say AI agent economy, whatever name would eventually call it, this future of work, like I'm sure like just like companies have like culture fit and everything, they would have to be like agent fit, right? So like for I'm just assuming that like if we have a marketing department and we have like three agents working in the marketing department, their soul.md file should have marketing characteristics, like how marketers behave, right? Like likewise, HR, right? You can't have like, I mean, if you have an AI agent in an HR department, like they need to have certain skills that they need to have certain behaviors, right? They need to be empathetic and they need to have empathy and things like that, right? So all those things would reflect in this new AI agent workforce that is coming up, right? Yeah. And I believe that the soul.md file is where you would put it.
So good. Oh, there's the stereotypes, right? Of especially because you worked in corporate, so you know the corporate stereotypes in every department, and there's just something that changes the way we behave with that persona that allows the work to happen.
100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. If you have like an AI agent reviewing code, for instance, like they would have a different personality from like someone, an AI agent in HR, right? So yeah, it's very important to give them the personalities they need to be able to perform the job because that's how they would think through the job. They would always have that lens, that context in mind. Oh, okay, I'm HR. I need to approach everything with empathy, or I need to approach everything with this kind of personality, right? If you don't
Mhm.
define it, then it would eventually affect the culture fit within the workforce, right?
Exactly. Yeah, every organization has its own value system, so these agents have to reflect that as well. It's so true.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, something I've been thinking about is let's say if you start a new role and you're tasked with creating your own agent,
Mhm.
because that's your new department, essentially. Like it's your department of one, you're the marketing department, and now you have all these agents that you yourself developed. And like you're saying, you give them souls, personalities, everything. If you transition into a different organization, do you take those agents with you, or do those agents then live with the organization and stay with the organization, meaning who owns the agents?
Oh, I think it would stay with organization because mind you, like back to the question, the points that we were talking about, like you are bringing these agents in to solve a problem, right? So, it's I know that like when people leave companies, they send, let's say you're a senior director, you get a gig in another company, and you had someone working with you, you want to send like the same people with you, right? Like you can go into now they're not people, they're agents, and agents are things you can create again, you can build them again, right? So if you go into this new organization and like you realize that it's a similar problem they're trying to solve here, you can always create it. Like you don't need to like bring the agents from one because again, every organization will have like a different culture fit or personally, like even like if you take different companies, if you hear a company like let's say Google, right?
Mm.
People have a different people have a brand associated with Google. If you hear let's say JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, like there's a different view, like they have their own brand, right? So every company has its own like brand. Every company has a way they are perceived, right? Even everywhere. So yeah, so you want to make sure that whatever, like even though you are certain personality at the department level, you're making sure that like this agent's personality is also googly. Like if it's in Google, like so I do think that if you're moving across companies, you'd rather want to build an agent that is sort of custom to the company's processes, policies, personality, and whatsoever.
That's so interesting. I get so lit up by this conversation because these are not the conversations I'm hearing people have. And I'm like, this is so cool. This is the future of work.
It's
And
interesting how
it
we talk
is.
about all these machines, and it's like once we get into robotics and robots are now working with us, it's also going to be like a very fascinating story, right?
It really is. And we can look back at this time and be like, oh my gosh, we had no idea.
Yeah.
And as we think about these corporations, something that you talk a lot about is there's a lot of employees that are very overwhelmed by technology, AI, and they're not getting necessarily leadership from their leaders about what to do with AI or what they should be doing. So, what is your take on artificial intelligence when it comes to organizations and AI strategy specifically?
Yeah, it's tricky here because on one hand a lot of organizations are adopting AI. On another hand, we are hearing and they're telling their employees to adopt AI. But then we also hear it in the news. Companies are cutting people because of AI, right? Back to the Diary of the CEO podcast. So he actually called the CEO of Klarna because the CEO of Klarna had made a tweet about like reducing workforce because of AI. And I think eventually they had to call some of them back or something like that. So he just called in to clarify. And the CEO said that they've been able to reduce their headcount or their employee by 50%, right? So if I'm not sure if it's exactly 50%, but then like significantly, right? Recently, Block also laid off I think 40% of their workforce and they cited AI. So like with employees hearing this, right? Like um in the workforce, a lot of people are worried, a lot of people are scared. But then also we are being told to like adopt AI. And I think that if the adoption is not sort of if the adoption isn't done properly, like if employees are not sort of trained, if companies are not creating enabling environments to help employees sort of adopt the technology, then they'll definitely bring in so many tools and people will probably end up not using it. Not because they don't want to, because but maybe also because they're like, okay, what if I actually automate my work and then I don't have any work here, right? But then for me, this is what I always say. I'm also an employee, right? This is what I always say that you should always try to build leverage yourself. Like this is the world we are going into. This is the times you're going into. Like the honest truth is that certain rules that existed last year are not going to exist this year. Even some rules that exist this year are not going to exist next year, right? And as someone who's always trying out AI tools, even as a product manager, I'm like, wow, like this AI tool is able to do like 60% of my job, right? So the rest of the value I'm bringing here is like judgment, like using the AI to do my job and then being able to make sure that like the data I'm getting is correct and everything. But you need to actually upskill. This is how like the company is one thing. Companies would have a bottom line. They're always like if they have like if they're publicly traded, they owe allegiance to like stakeholders and the stock markets and everything. So they don't have a choice and to like they have to do things that are beneficial to the company, right? And so that sometimes may lead to layoffs and it's very, very sad. But I think that as employees, like what we have to do is also upskill and what is the jobs of the future, right? Right now, there are new jobs coming up. Like when I go on LinkedIn, I see things like AI security engineer, right? AI product designer, AI agent builder, right? This is the times we are in right now. So I think in order for employees to get over this, or to go through this new shift, which is changing so quickly that you can't even catch up. I think it's just upskilling, right? So be the one who builds the automation, be the one who builds the AI agents, be the one who understands the new technology, the new tool, be the one who knows how to do it, right? Because if it comes down to the company saying that, okay, in this department, we only want two people and there are 10 people, they're probably going to keep the one who can basically manage the automations that are coming to replace the task for which they're
Mm,
letting people go, right? So
mm.
it falls back down to employees to sort of like try and upskill so that you don't get left behind.
So good. Yeah, I mean that I think that's the best advice is to really take your career into your own hands and to upskill like with courses that you offer, YouTube, like you're saying you listen to podcasts, there's a ton of different ways to get information to upskill. And I'm curious when speaking then to a leader, how would you tell them, how would you advise them? Like how do you implement AI in your organization, encourage employees to have agents while maintaining morale? No easy
That's a very
task.
tough spots to be in. Provide employees the tools they need. I know that I've seen in the news that some companies are sort of now including it in performance reviews, right? Some companies are including this in performance reviews that like you need to, and I've had friends tell me this, like they've had their managers tell them that by the end of this year, you need to be good at AI, right? I'm not too sure if that's the way to go, like use it or not. But I think you need to get to, as an organization, you need to get to a point where like you're able to create the safe space. I also think it comes down to trust, right? It comes down to trust. Organizations need to be very transparent with employees, and let them know, and enable them where they have to. Because also like the reason why I'm saying it comes down to trust is because like if employees also realize that like you're going to lay them off anyways, right? Which is why I bring the conversation back to employees that you have to put a career in your put your careers in your own hands. But yeah, if I have to advise leadership, it's a matter of like first, when you're deploying AI or any new technology, there's change management, right? And that takes time. You don't say, and that's why a lot of leaders lay off people and then they call them back. I know people who were laid off at Block and
Yeah.
they were called back, right? They were called back in like less than 1 week. Um,
Sounds like a bad breakup.
yeah, I know. So um, that's the thing. Adoption takes time, right? It's this like this AI thing is a change that is happening. Adoption takes time. So the fact that you tested an AI agent and it can write code does not mean that tomorrow you should just lay off everybody, right? It takes time. You need to make sure that you're rolling it out correctly. You need to make sure that you're crossing your T's. I mean, you won't get 100% there, but you identify a problem, you're like, okay, this AI agent can solve it, right? It solves it. You have to monitor it, make sure that it's solving it consistently. Make sure that even though you have the AI agents, you always need a human in the loop. You always need somebody to oversee the work an AI agent is doing, right? So you always will still need people, right? So even if you're laying off people, you need to first also identify which roles are very critical for this AI agent to work really well, right? Recently, Amazon, they came out, there was this memo that leaked. I think they said senior developers would have to sort of approve code or something like that before they are pushed to production, right? Because I think there was an outage or something like that. So yes, we need to see this just like releasing in the old in like before AI came and we were releasing software, there was a whole change management process. Before you push a change, you have to make sure that you've gotten buy-in from different leaders, different departments, because they also need to access the impact of that change on their projects or on their systems as well, right? So we need to treat this just like we would do change management and know that this is not something that is just happening today. It's something that would happen over time. And as much as organizations want to get a quick return on their investment, they need to take time test it out, make sure that it works, have a lot of humans in the loop. And then after you've tried it out for several months. Again, it comes down to even how long you test it out should also depend on how critical this AI agent is, right? If you are using an AI agent to replace a very critical process, you don't expect it, you don't just say, oh, this AI agent has been deployed for 1 month, so we are done. Like you should go. No, if it's very critical to your business running, you want to make sure that you're testing it out for a very long time. You're getting a lot of documentation in place and you're still having someone around to make sure that a human in the loop to make sure that this AI is delivering things that is supposed to. So yes, treat it as change management, take time with adoption, and make sure that you're testing it out really quickly and documenting as you go.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. You would have thought that I had given you that question in advance. That was a beautiful answer. What your degree and your master's in business is coming out. It's amazing.
Okay.
So impressive. I think that that makes a lot of sense. I think you have to think about it as a holistic perspective. You need a bigger plan. And like you're saying, this is not a magic bullet. This is not like some sort of implement AI and walk away and it's all done. There's a lot of stake here to manage and leading AI agents. And for an organization to function, because what you're saying is like when people want to adopt AI, they're saying we want to go faster, we want to go grow, we want to scale. They want to adopt AI because they know it's something better, but it might not be something better right away.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And if you lay everyone off and something breaks, what do you do, right? Most of the people that were
Exactly.
called back for bulk, the reason was like you are in a very critical position right now, right? And I'm like, okay, you just broke up with your ex and you're calling them back. What do you expect, you know?
Not good. You
So,
didn't think this through. That was so emotional.
yeah, so yeah, I think for leaders, they need to take time. And I know it's like you get a new toy, you play with it, you love it, and then you forget about everybody else, you know. And then till it breaks and then you're like, okay,
You're
where's
like,
everyone
uh-oh.
else? Like, so yeah, it's change takes time, right? And it's gonna happen over. Like I said, like even with AI, it has always been there. It's been there for a long time. It's just because of generative AI and it's now accessible. Even with AI, it's taking time before it's like till 2022, there
Wow.
was AI and everything, but it's just like this past 3 years, a lot of people are actually paying so much attention. So it takes
Mhm.
time, right?
Yeah. And I think it seems now more than ever, people really need these leadership skills of empathy, patience, right? Upskilling, taking a pause to kind of reevaluate, having clarity. All the things you're saying are really like these foundational tools that I think if we hone on those and then really layer in AI, I feel like your career becomes full, future proof.
100%. Like regardless of whichever field you find yourself in, whether you're in healthcare. I was talking to a friend today and he was telling me at his university they are introducing AI in medicine, right? So regardless of the industry you find yourself in, whether you're in healthcare, I said healthcare specifically because when it comes to adopting technology, healthcare, finance, they don't adopt technology that quickly because there's like human lives at stake. There's a lot of regulations, compliance, and everything. But regardless of the industry you find yourself in, AI is changing that industry one way or the other. So if you want to still stay relevant, you definitely need to upskill, right? It's like going back to the days where the internet came, right? Will you say no, I don't want to go on the internet or like you need to find a way to adapt, right? Just like calculators, right? You can't still say that it you don't care. Like it's you need to adapt, right? Because it's going to affect your life one way or the other.
It's so true. And it reminds me, I heard a talk by Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, and he was saying, he said, it's going to come to a point where I have the option of I can hire an engineer or an engineer who knows AI. I can hire a doctor who knows AI. And he was just kind of comparing. He's like, I'm going to go with the person who knows AI. So it's not, so it's like just layer it into your own career and your path.
100%. And I mean, I think the time is now because if you go on LinkedIn and you go on LinkedIn jobs, like most of the jobs are asking like think of it like HR, like every job is asking about AI, So it's not even something that is gonna happen in 3 months or 6 months. Like it's happening right now. Like every job is asking for AI. You're a UX designer, like they're asking for AI. Like you are, because now like they know that with AI they can hire one person to do the job of three people. So you need to know how to use AI so that you can use it to do the job of three people, right? But yeah,
Exactly.
you need to know AI for sure. Like I think we're at a point where it's non-negotiable.
Mhm.
And honestly, knowing it is for your own good as well, because there's so much
Mhm.
leverage you can build with AI. It opens up not just in the career space, not just in professional space. Like you can seriously increase your income. There's a lot of opportunities right now, right? So it's you building leverage with AI. It's not like you're doing a disservice to yourself. Like it's very advantageous to you as a person.
I feel like that's a beautiful way to wrap this up. I feel like
Mhm.
build your leverage with AI. And I feel like you're the perfect leader and teacher to help guide so many there. So, how can people find you, learn from you, all the things?
Okay, yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn. So I'm a LinkedIn learning instructor. So I do have a number of courses on LinkedIn. So I'm mostly on LinkedIn, literally posting every day. You can also find me on YouTube. I create a lot of content on YouTube as well. I do have a community, a paid community where I sort of like have a lot of learners, builders who are trying to also build leverage with AI. I do have courses, coaching programs. I organize workshops. But like if you want to find me, you find me on LinkedIn for sure.
Amazing. I'll put all your information down below in the show notes as well. Stephanie Nyarko, that has been such a pleasure talking to you, learning from you. I feel immensely inspired, and I can't wait to continue learning from you on all the social channels.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you for
having me.
being with us.
I really
Yes.
enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much. Be well.